The Mongols had crushed empires from China to Persia. They were a storm no army could stop. Yet when their fleets reached Japan, they met something unexpected. Just 80 samurai warriors who refused to kneel. What followed was a battle so fierce it made the Mongols question their own invincibility. In the 13th century, the Mongols were unstoppable. Under Genghis Khan and his heirs, they had built the largest contiguous empire in history. Cities that resisted were burned to ash, their people slaughtered or enslaved. The Mongols moved like thunder across the steppe, wielding composite bows that pierced armor and cavalry tactics that shattered any formation. By 1274, the empire was ruled by Kublai Khan, grandson of Genghis. Having conquered China and Korea, Kublai looked east toward the islands of Japan. To him, they were just another territory to be added to the map. He demanded tribute from the Japanese court, but the Japanese emperor and the ruling shogunate ignored him. For Kublai, this was not just defiance, it was an insult. He ordered an invasion fleet. In November 1274, nearly 900 ships carrying 15,000 Mongol and Chinese soldiers and 8,000 Korean auxiliaries set sail for Kyushu, the southernmost of Japan's main islands. To the Mongols, Japan seemed like a small, isolated nation. The invasion was expected to be swift and brutal. When the fleet landed at Hakata Bay, Japan's defenders rushed to meet them. But the Japanese were not a centralized empire like China. Their warriors were samurai, regional fighters, loyal to local lords, and when the Mongols came, just 80 samurai stood at the front lines. The Mongols fought differently from anything the samurai had ever seen. They advanced in tight ranks, banging drums to terrify the enemy, loosing clouds of arrows, and using gunpowder bombs that exploded with thunderous force. The samurai, trained in one-on-one duels of honor, suddenly found themselves facing an army that fought as a machine. Yet the samurai refused to break. Mounted on horseback, clad in armor, wielding katanas and longbows, they charged into the Mongol ranks. One by one, they sought single combat, cutting down Mongols with unmatched ferocity. They fought not for empire, but for honor, and that made them unpredictable. For the first time, the Mongols felt resistance that wasn't just military, it was spiritual. The samurai fought as if every life lost was a victory in itself. The Mongols had expected fear. Instead, they found defiance. The battle at Hakata Bay became the stuff of legend. The Mongols landed in overwhelming numbers, advancing behind shields, their arrows blotting out the sky. The samurai, just 80 strong at the vanguard, rode into them without hesitation. One samurai, named Takezaki Suenaga, chronicled his role in the battle. He described charging the Mongols head-on, his arrows striking their armor, his sword cutting through soldiers until his horse was shot beneath him. He continued on foot, slashing at enemies until reinforcements arrived. The samurai fought in small groups, striking the Mongol lines and retreating before they could be surrounded. At night, they launched daring raids on Mongol camps, cutting down guards and vanishing into the dark. Their courage shocked the Mongols, who were used to enemies collapsing under massed assaults. The Mongols had another problem: Japan's terrain. Hakata Bay was narrow, the beaches muddy, and the surrounding hills provided natural defenses. Unlike the open plains of China and Korea, the battlefield here limited their cavalry, their greatest strength. But the Mongols still pushed forward, using thunder crash bombs, primitive grenades that exploded with fire and shrapnel. The samurai had never seen such weapons before, yet they did not retreat. The explosions only fueled their fury. The fighting raged for hours. Wave after wave of Mongol troops crashed against the samurai line. Still, the Japanese refused to surrender. By nightfall, the Mongols had gained ground, but at a cost. They had expected an easy conquest. Instead, they faced an enemy that fought to the death, no matter the odds. And then came nature's intervention. As the Mongols prepared to press deeper into Japan, a violent storm struck Hakata Bay. Ships were smashed against rocks. Soldiers drowned in the raging waves. The fleet was forced to retreat, limping back to Korea. The samurai had survived. Against overwhelming numbers, their resistance and the storm together had turned back the most feared army on earth. For the Mongols, the Battle of Bune was supposed to be routine. Instead, it became a humiliation. They had lost ships, men, and the aura of invincibility that had carried them across Asia. Kublai Khan refused to accept defeat. He prepared for a second invasion, building an even larger fleet. But the memory of Hakata Bay lingered. The samurai's defiance had shown the Mongols that conquest wasn't guaranteed. Japan was not Persia, nor China, nor Korea. Here, every warrior seemed to fight with the desperation of 10. For Japan, the battle became a story of divine favor. The storm that wrecked the Mongol fleet was seen as a kamikaze, or divine wind, sent by the gods to protect the islands. Samurai who fought at Hakata became legends, their deeds recorded in scrolls and paintings. The Mongols tried again in 1281, launching an even larger invasion with over 4,000 ships and 140,000 men. But once again, samurai resistance and a massive typhoon destroyed the fleet. Twice, the Mongols had been broken not just by warriors, but by Japan's storms. What made the samurai different wasn't just skill, it was mentality. While the Mongols fought for empire, the samurai fought for honor, loyalty, and death without fear. That spirit, combined with nature's fury, turned the tide of history. The Mongols had crushed kingdoms across Asia and Europe, but in Japan, they found something they could not conquer. A people willing to die to the last man, and a land that seemed protected by the gods. The Mongol invasions of Japan left scars, but also legends. For centuries, the samurai's stand at Hakata Bay became a symbol of Japan's resilience. The idea of kamikaze lived on, resurfacing even in World War II, when Japanese pilots invoked the same divine wind as they fought American forces. The samurai who fought in 1274 proved that courage could defy overwhelming odds. 80 warriors charging thousands changed the way Japan saw itself. They were not just defenders of an island, they were guardians of a divine destiny. For the Mongols, the defeat was a turning point. Their empire was still vast, but the myth of their invincibility was gone. If 80 samurai and a storm could stop them, then maybe others could too. Resistance suddenly seemed possible. History often remembers great empires by their victories, but sometimes it is their defeats that define them. The Mongols' failure in Japan showed the world that even the most unstoppable force could be resisted. And for Japan, that battle became more than history. It became identity. The samurai, the storm, the refusal to yield, these were woven into the nation's soul. The Mongols feared Japan not because of its size, but because of its spirit. And that spirit, born on the beaches of Hakata Bay, echoed for centuries. The Mongols conquered half the known world, but on the shores of Japan, they met something different. Warriors who would rather die than kneel, and storms that seemed sent by the heavens. This wasn't just a battle. It was the moment the Mongols learned that even empires have limits.